One of the biggest and probably most important events in all of One Piece has just happened with the full reveal of Saint Nerona Imu, the king of the world on Elbaf. And this is the character who is likely the endgame villain of One Piece, and if not, at least the second to last, because there's always still the chance of it being Blackbeard. But with this reveal, however, it has triggered the community to start talking about a topic that has long been discussed and theorized at length over the course of the tenure of One Piece, and it is which Straw Hat should die or will die by the end of the story, or even outright stating which one they themselves think should die. So in today's video, I want to weigh in on this topic, and not to give my own opinion on who I think should die specifically, because I don't think anybody in One Piece is gonna die. Any of the Straw Hats are gonna die, but to answer the question of why everyone wants a Straw Hat to die in the story in the first place, and then finally address why the chances of a Straw Hat ever dying are likely 0 to none, if we're being honest. Like, it's One Piece, bro. Nobody dies in One Piece. But with all the preamble out the way, as usual, I want to thank you guys so much for the support that you've been showing. You know, I really do appreciate it. We're so close to hitting 1,200 subs. By the time this video goes up, at least where I'm recording, we're at 1,195 subs. So, you know, we're still going. So please continue liking, commenting, subscribing, and helping out the channel. It really does help. It really does help. Love you guys. But now let's get it done. So right out the gate, I think it's important to discuss the exact reason a lot of One Piece fans are so obsessed with the idea of a Straw Hat dying, and it's one of two reasons, or maybe even both. But for one, they believe it will add stakes to the story in some way, even more than the story already kind of has. And then the other reason is that a lot of them believe Usopp needs to die, whether this is out of them just not liking him, or in their own eyes, they believe he has served his purpose on the crew and in the story in general overall. And I do want to start by addressing the stakes part before I address the Usopp part, because as One Piece has gone on for as long as it has, or honestly in any shonen at all, people have gotten so used to the idea of the protagonist being beaten up over and over every single arc, right? And they want them to be this underdog who is losing constantly. And a good number of people feel that this has been lost with the introduction of Gear 5. And mostly on Egghead, where we saw the Monster Trio and the Straw Hat successfully push back the Gorosei and the Marine Fleet, this is where they believe that it began to happen. But this, however, never made sense to me in two ways, right? For one, the Straw Hats didn't beat the Gorosei themselves. They were forced back to Marijois by Joy Boy's his hockey knot from Emmett, right? And I will admit that before the Gorosei showed up, yes, I do believe Luffy and the crew would have been able to push back Kizaru, CP0, which that was just mostly Rob Lucci, and the Seraphim, but it makes sense. This should happen. The crew is coming off of the back of beating their first Yonko crew in Wano, and the one with probably the most durable and monstrous captain to fight in a one-on-one fight. In a one-on-one fight, always bet on Kaido. We're told this repeatedly, right? We saw the crew struggle in Wano so many times, with Zoro literally having to master Enma, and not only that, he had to fully develop Conqueror's Haki because of it during his fight with King. Now, whether or not he knew that he had Conqueror's Haki, you know, different conversation. He didn't, but it still happened. And then Sanji had to reconcile with his Germa 66 experimentation that was done with him as a child, because the raid suit awakened his latent genetic abilities. And then there's Luffy, who literally had to die to awaken Gear 5. Not to mention the countless other times he was beaten by Kaido before even achieving this power up, and the training that he did outside of that with Rio to be able to damage Kaido in his Gear 4 forms with, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? But the Straw Hats are a Yonko level crew by this point in the story. They have territories that their name alone needs to be able to protect, the same way that Big Mom, Kaido, Whitebeard, or Shanks' name does, right? Hell, even Blackbeard. Like, Blackbeard's name does hold weight in the One Piece world, right? But the days of the Straw Hats being beaten time and time again are over. I'm not saying that they're not going to be beaten, but they're approaching the top of the verse. They're not these underdogs that we expect from, like, chapter, I don't know, 500 or something, right? Imagine if in the fourth Great Ninja War, Naruto was still getting pieced up by Pain, bro. Like, somebody on Pain's level. Like, what do you mean? He's fighting against literal gods, bro. He needs the power up. He needs to be out here doing the dirt, bro. He needs to be out here getting it down. Like, imagine, like, in Bleach. Ichigo was still getting packed up by some Iran cars, bro. Come on, be serious. Like, the idea of Luffy and the crew approaching this power level and you having a problem with it just never made sense to me. That's the point of shonen anime. They're supposed to get stronger. It would be annoying at this point in the story if Luffy isn't giving an admiral a proper run for their money in a fight, or even straight up beating one. We've seen these guys grow over the course of 1,000 episodes, right? Like, at this point, they need to be doing this shit. They should have been doing this shit probably like an arc or two ago, right? I don't understand why people have such a problem with the natural progression of the shonen power system that we are so accustomed to at this point when it comes to One Piece. I understand that different characters in the Straw Hat crew aren't doing what you want them to do, but the main trio, the main three, they're doing what you want them to do, and you're still complaining about it, right? Sanji literally went up against a Gorosei. Did he win? No, but he did something. Sanji from Whole Cake would have been packed up real quick. Zoro from Dressrosa? Come on, bro. Would have been packed up real quick on Egghead. Luffy from Dressrosa would have been packed up real quick on Egghead. They've grown so much. They've gone through so many arcs to earn this power. It's not like it was just thrown at them and they're just like, oh yeah, this is my power now. But piggybacking off the idea of us being at the top of the verse is the fact that Usopp is still shooting from a slingshot. That's what people mostly complain about him. And while, yes, I understand how that can be frustrating, it is very much in the spirit of what One Piece is as a story. We may have these epic fights and crazy lore drops, but it's still a story about a rubber man who can't swim, who set out to sea to become the king of the pirates. It's still a silly pirate manga at the end of the day. And now I won't defend the fact that Oda hasn't used Usopp to do anything as relevant as he did in Dressrosa. I do believe people have been setting themselves up for disappointment for years with the idea of this is gonna be this Straw Hats arc, right? I can definitely see where people are coming from, you know, with Usopp, because he was the one who always talked about Elbaf and all that kind of stuff. But if Wano, which was the island of the samurai, wasn't Zoro's arc, I didn't expect Elbaf to be Usopp's arc. I'm going to be honest, because Zoro literally has lore connected to Wano that we got in like a SBS or something. So I didn't really expect Elbaf to be Usopp's arc. And honestly, it kind of is. If you read the last chapter, you know, he's living up to the idea of being the brave warrior of the sea. He's kind of living up to that, right? Oda has come on record, I'm pretty sure, and stated that Usopp from pre-time skip and Usopp post-time skip, literally same strength level. He just got buffer. He just got built, all right? But he's not any much more stronger than he was before, right? And the Straw Hats outside of the Monster Trio as a group, and Jinbei, I will add Jinbei, for sure need to be used better during fights or just in arcs in general. You know, I agree with that. But we have long moved past the point where every Straw Hat is getting a relevant fight every single arc. As much as that may suck, because I really did love Nami's fights pre-time skip, right? But before I move on though, I would just want to say the boy Usopp did, you know, raid bait Emu showing up on Elbaf. And it looks like it's giving us the stakes that everyone has been so desperate to have in One Piece, because if you read the last chapter, kind of crazy, right? But it's, you know, every arc hasn't had some form of stakes in it. It's not like that hasn't happened, right? So first off, I want to make it even more clear than I have already throughout this video that I do not think a Straw Hat at any point in the story will ever die, right? I do not believe it is a part of the One Piece DNA for something like that to happen. It's just not a part of the story and how it's being set up. Every single member of the crew is important in some way, and they may not be important to you as a reader and or watcher, but they are to Luffy, because these people are literally his family. Nakama, that's what they are. They're not just friends. There's also the fact that Luffy has already gone through the Great Loss arc in the story with Ace, and he vowed to never let something like that happen ever again. It was the entire point of his 2-year time skip, his training arc. That's why Luffy went on that training arc. He realized that, yo, I'm not strong enough to protect the people that I love. I need to become stronger. I need to get better to protect them from these things out there, right? Because they themselves may not be able to do that. I don't want this to ever happen again, right? And if Oda at this point in the series so late were to kill off someone as important to Luffy as a member of the crew, again, so late in the series, it would take a lot, right? This isn't Naruto where you kill off someone like Neji, who could have used at least a vacuum palm to deflect the branch or use rotation, because it's not like he has one of the best defensive jutsus in the entire series, and he could have survived. I'm not gonna go that right. I'm not gonna go that right. We're gonna have that for another video, right? But to have Luffy be how Naruto was and say, oh, there's no time to grieve, we need to keep going, right? Something like that would shatter Luffy the same way it did with Ace. Probably worse. Not gonna lie to you, right? Not to mention how it would affect the entire crew at large, right? That would make it worse. Again, they are all a family. It would be one of the biggest demoralizers for them at such a critical point in the story, where again, we're approaching the top of the verse. We're kind of looking at the end game guy right now. And to have somebody get killed, right? And I know a lot of you may be like, oh, you can serve as like a wake-up call, right? But a wake-up call does not always have to be killing off a character that is close to the main character, in my opinion. If it doesn't serve the story by pushing it forward, it's lazy writing, right? Because it's one less character to write and a reason for Luffy to do the things he does. But that's the thing. Luffy does the things he does simply because he wants to, or you're an obstacle in his way to acquiring the One Piece. And I don't know if you know, but Imu is already an obstacle in that way. Luffy himself may not realize it right now, but I'm pretty sure at the end of this arc, he will. Because he will eventually, because Imu's kind of packing the crew up right now, right? The same way he did with everyone else who's going after the One Piece. Not to mention that Imu is, again, literally on Elbaf, making his presence known to all of the Straw Hats and Loki, right? And again, Loki kind of already told Luffy about this stuff, right? Luffy knows that there's a higher power at play in the world based on Loki's story about Herald and Rocks. Not to mention the Holy Knights showing up on Elbaf already. The Straw Hats already know that they have to face the world government at some point, right? And also, the biggest thing, the Straw Hats still have all their dreams that they need to achieve. Usopp wants to be a brave warrior of the sea, and while I can attest to the fact that he has and continues to live up to that, because him speaking out the way that he does on Elbaf and doing the things that he does, regardless of his fear, shows that he's a brave warrior of the sea. One thing that people always kind of get misconstrued is that the idea of being brave is the absence of fear. No, being brave is doing something regardless of that fear, and Usopp does that time and time again, right? But the thing is, imagine being the one who helps the king of the pirates find the One Piece. What better way to be hailed as a brave warrior of the sea than to help the man that you believe in as your captain to find the One Piece? That is what will not deify, but I mean, honestly, God Usopp. So deify Usopp in becoming that brave warrior of the sea. And also, again, we have this running trope that all of Usopp's lies are real. So he will become a brave warrior of the sea, and Luffy is going to become the king of the pirates. Like, we kind of see that already, but there, dude, no Straw Hats dying. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you, man. If you were coming in the story expecting people to die, like, bro, this isn't whatchamacallit, this isn't Attack on Titan. They don't be knocking people off like this, bro. Look all the way back in Alabasta. Like Pele, I think his name was Pele, the bird dude, bro. He got blown up sky high. He should have been dead, came back. Like, shit. One Piece isn't supposed to be a story of tragedy for the Straw Hats. While yes, it tackles heavy themes and the crew goes through some pretty tumultuous things throughout their lives, individually and together, that is all before they met. Once anyone joins the crew, they are signing on with the promise that they will be protected by any and everybody, right? I mean, look at how everyone was behaving about Robin on Egghead when Saint Saturn was going off after her, right? So I think we all just really need to drop this narrative of Oda killing off a Straw Hat, bro. Like, it's not going to happen. And if it does, whenever this YouTube channel starts making money, bro, I'll send $1,000. No, I'm not doing that shit. I'm not doing that shit. I'm not even going to cap on doing that shit, right? But the stakes in One Piece are already there. We have been shown time and time again that the worst thing that can happen to a character in One Piece isn't death, but having your dreams broken, right? That's what people always kind of say about Luffy. The absolute worst thing that could happen to him, and is a fate way worse than death, is to have his dream of being the king of the pirates shattered. Because people always say that Luffy doesn't kill his opponents, he breaks their will and their dream. What worse way is there to live in a world where dreams literally manifest into devil fruits than to have the one thing that you've been pining for and going after your probably entire life, your life's purpose, stripped away from you, right? Like Eustace Kid don't gotta be dead. He probably is, I ain't gonna cap, but Kid doesn't have to be dead. His dream of becoming the king of the pirates is over. his crew got annihilated by Shanks. So One Piece isn't this story about grandiose death and all that kind of things, right? It's the idea of following your dreams and following it to the fullest of your abilities, regardless of who's telling you not to do it or who's putting you down. And if that's stripped away from you, that's a fate worse than death in the One Piece world, right? But that's the video, as usual. I do hope you guys enjoyed it, you know, and let me know what you think down below in the comments, right? Maybe I'm wrong and a Straw Hat does need to die for the story to get stakes and make the story a little bit better, right? Make it a little bit more edgy. Even though One Piece isn't supposed to be this edgy story. It's why we got Gear 5 after all those Gear 4th edgy transformations. That's not what One Piece is. It's not Bleach. It's not Bleach. And I don't think Bleach is that edgy. But again, let me know what you guys think down. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe. You know, if you made it this far in the video at this point, you like to hear me yap, and I really do hope you did enjoy the video because I got way more coming, because we're super close to getting monetized, guys. I thank you guys so much, and I love you. Goodbye.